It all started with one simple decoration. A cheerful, inflatable snowman I placed on my front lawn. It wasn't flashy, just a fun addition for the holidays. Neighbors smiled when they walked by, kids laughed and pointed, and for a week everything was fine. But then, a note appeared on my door. It wasn't from the HOA directly. It was handwritten and signed only with a concerned neighbor. It demanded I remove the snowman immediately. I didn't need to guess who it came from. Everyone knew Karen, and everyone knew she couldn't stand when others enjoyed themselves. Karen's glare became a daily routine. Every morning, she walked her tiny dog past my house, pausing just long enough to scowl at the snowman as if it had personally insulted her. Soon after, I received an official notice from the HOA citing unauthorized lawn structures. It was laughable our bylaws allowed seasonal decorations, but Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was on the board. She wielded her position like a weapon. I decided to ignore the letter and leave the snowman standing tall. That small act of defiance was enough to send Karen spiraling into her next move. The escalation was almost predictable. Karen stormed through the neighborhood meetings, loudly complaining about eyesores and rule breakers. My neighbors whispered and rolled their eyes, but no one dared confront her directly. Then, one Saturday evening, red and blue lights flashed outside my window. 2 police cars parked in front of my house. At first, I thought something serious had happened. But when the officers knocked, they asked about reports of a disturbance, the disturbance being my inflatable snowman. Karen had actually called the cops on a piece of holiday decor. I couldn't believe it, but I wasn't surprised. The officers stepped onto my lawn, their faces caught between confusion and amusement. They inspected the snowman, as though expecting it to commit a crime. Karen appeared moments later, hands on her hips, voice shrill as she demanded they remove it. She claimed it was a violation of HOA rules and a danger to the neighborhood. The officers listened politely, but glanced at me with a look that said everything. They had been called out for this? It was ridiculous. Yet Karen doubled down, insisting I face consequences. The snowman just stood there, smiling silently through the chaos. The officers finally asked to see the HOA rules. Karen proudly waved a folder, flipping to highlighted passages, but the wording was vague and didn't support her claims. Decorations were permitted within reason, and nothing prohibited inflatables. The officers exchanged a look, thanked her for her concern, and turned back to me. They explained I was well within my rights and that no laws were being broken. Karen's face turned red, her composure cracking. She had dragged law enforcement into a neighborhood squabble, and it backfired. The snowman stayed put, but Karen wasn't ready to let it go. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Word spread that Karen had called the police over a snowman, and suddenly her usual supporters kept their distance. Kids laughed every time they passed her house, and even her fellow board members seemed embarrassed. Still, Karen tried to spin the narrative, telling anyone who'd listened that I was dangerous for defying the rules. But the more she talked, the more ridiculous she sounded. Meanwhile, I quietly added a string of festive lights around the snowman. It wasn't just decoration any. What was a symbol? And the more she fought it, the bigger it grew. By mid-December, neighbors began putting up their own inflatables in solidarity. Santa waved from the Johnsons' yard, reindeer appeared across the street, and a giant penguin even showed up next door. The street transformed into a holiday wonderland. Karen fumed, sending out mass emails filled with warnings and threats, but no one listened. Her once feared authority had crumbled, replaced with laughter and rebellion. The police never returned, and the HOA quietly distanced themselves from her antics. What began as one snowman had turned into a full neighborhood display, united against her pettiness, and Karen was left isolated, powerless. Christmas Eve arrived, and the street glowed brighter than ever. Families gathered, children played, and my snowman stood proudly at the center of it all. Karen's house, in contrast, was dark and undecorated, a stark symbol of her failed crusade. She peeked from behind her curtains, scowling, but no one paid her any mind. The police never came back, the HOA dropped their notices, and the neighborhood carried on without her approval. In the end, Karen had called the cops on a harmless snowman and only managed to expose her own bitterness. The snowman won, and so did we.